Rain didn't fall that night. It hovered, suspended, like the city itself was waiting to exhale. The restaurant's glass wall was all reflection, power inside, hunger outside. Lyra stood by the door, fingers trembling, watching her friend's tears scatter across marble. Wine? Humiliation? Laughter. The sound of men who believed no one would ever stop them. Dominic Cale sat at the center, unmoved. Silver cufflink catching the light like a blade kept polite. Her pulse counted the distance. 12 steps, each one louder than the music. Mara's hand reached for her, whispering, "Don't." But silence already answered. The crowd parted, not for her, for what they feared might happen to her. He looked up only when the shadow of her defiance crossed his plate. A breath, then impact. The slap landed clean. The sound wasn't violent. It was clarity, someone gasped. Someone laughed. The room froze on the edge of disbelief. Lyra's chest burned with something worse than fear. Relief. He didn't stand. Didn't shout. Didn't strike back. He just touched his cheek, slowly, and smiled. "Finally," he said. "Someone real." And in that moment, every threat in the room became quiet enough to feel human. It stayed longer than it should have, long enough for her to know this wasn't over. The rain came late, thin, hesitant, like even the sky feared interrupting what it had witnessed. Lyra walked alone. The streetlights blurred into ribbons, gold melting into the pavement. Her hand still ached. Not from pain, from memory. She kept hearing the sound, not the slap itself. The silence that followed. That silence was heavier than any scream. It replayed behind her eyes like a secret she wasn't sure she wanted to keep. Mara's voice trembled in her mind. "You shouldn't have done that." But the words felt small against the truth beating in her ribs. She had done it because no one else would. Because dignity shouldn't require permission. Because fear had been sitting in too many rooms pretending to be respect. The rain thickened. Her reflection shattered across every puddle, each version of herself asking, "What now?" For the first time, she didn't have an answer. She thought about his smile. Not cruel, not shocked. Just knowing, like he'd been waiting for someone to break the rules he'd built his world around. The thought made her shiver. Not from cold, from awareness. There was something worse than being hated by a man like him, being noticed by him. Somewhere in the distance, a car door shut. No footsteps followed, just the hum of the city, steady, watching. Lyra kept walking. Head low, breath slow. One truth at a time, she whispered to herself. Just survive the night. But deep down, even survival had started to sound like surrender, and the silence, once merciful, now felt like someone listening. Morning came like nothing had happened. Except everything had. The city didn't care who you slapped. It just carried on. Traffic, chatter, headlines about markets and men. But beneath it all, Lyra could feel the rhythm shift. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number, no message. Just a pulse. One tone, then gone. She told herself it was nothing. That he wouldn't bother. That monsters didn't chase truth. They erased it. Still, she found herself glancing over her shoulder when glass doors reflected her face. Every mirror looked a little too aware. At work, whispers moved faster than breath. Someone had filmed it. The slap. The look on his face. The line that spread through the crowd like lightning. Finally, someone real. By noon, strangers online were calling her the girl who dared. By night, she was a myth. Myths don't sleep. They tremble in borrowed bodies. Mara came to her apartment, eyes wide with fear. "You don't get it," she whispered. "He doesn't lose." Lyra smiled the way exhausted people do, gently, without belief. "I didn't win," she said. "I just stopped bowing." But the truth? That line had started to sound rehearsed. The knock came 2 nights later. Not loud, measured. She froze halfway to the door. Outside, a shadow framed in hallway light. A man in a black suit, gloved hands. "Calm, Miss Vale," he said. "Mr. Cowell requests your presence, not threatens." Requests. The word carried more danger than a gun. She felt her pulse betray her. It wasn't just fear. It was something sharper. Awareness of being seen. Her breath wavered. Her resolve did not. "Tell him," she said. "I don't work for men who smile at violence." He didn't argue. He just nodded once, as if she'd said exactly what Cale had predicted. When the door shut, she stood there for a long time, heart pounding like a warning she didn't want to understand. "He's not finished with you," whispered the thought she tried to silence. "He's just begun watching." The elevator was too quiet. Even the air seemed to wait. 2 floors left. Her reflection in the mirrored panel looked calm. A lie she'd rehearsed. When the doors opened, the world changed temperature. Marble. Glass. Silence. And him. Dominic Cale. The man she'd struck. Sitting behind nothing. No guards, no desk. Just a single glass of water and a chair across from him. "Miss Vale?" he said. Her name sounded strange in his voice. Like it belonged to someone important. She didn't sit. Didn't speak. Didn't blink. He gestured to the chair once. A command disguised as courtesy. She stayed standing. "That's your first mistake," the silence seemed to whisper. He smiled, slow, deliberate. "The world applauds you," he said. "They call you brave." She waited. 3 seconds. He continued, "But you didn't do it for them." Her breath caught. That line landed harder than the slap. She looked away. The city glittered behind him. Towers reflected in the glass, the same way power reflected lies. "I did it because my friend cried," she said. "Wrong," he answered softly. "You did it because you wanted to see what would happen when fear looked away. Cold, precise, but not cruel. Just correct." She exhaled through her nose, steady. "You think you know me?" "I do," he said. "Because I've been waiting for you." The room shrank. The hum of the building filled the space between heartbeats. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, eyes fixed on hers. "Everyone around me performs loyalty. You perform truth." She should have felt safe hearing that. She didn't, because truth in his world was never free. He reached into his pocket, set something on the table, her bracelet. The one she lost the night of the slap. She froze. "How did you—" "You dropped it when you walked away," he said. "I thought you might want it back." Her fingers brushed the metal. Warm from his hand. "Too personal. Why keep it?" she asked. His answer came quiet, without edge. "To remember what real sounds like." The breath she took after that wasn't courage. It was surrender, not to him, but to the truth that curiosity is a kind of chain. He stood. The air moved differently. No threat, just presence. "Next time you want to slap me," he said, "do it where no one can save you." He passed her, paused at the door. "Until then, Miss Vale, stay unpredictable." When he left, the room stayed warmer than it should have. She didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't know if she'd just survived a warning or accepted an invitation. She didn't go home that night. The city felt tilted, like the ground remembered what she'd done. Instead, she walked. Long streets, dim lamps, rain again, every drop echoed his voice. You wanted to see what happens when fear looks away. He wasn't wrong. That was the part that frightened her most, because in that split second, when her palm met his skin, she hadn't felt guilt. She'd felt clarity, no trembling, no regret. Just the clean, terrifying piece of truth delivered barehanded. Now that piece followed her like a ghost. Mara called twice. Lyra didn't answer. What could she say? That the man she defied had started to sound less like danger, more like understanding. She reached a bridge, the kind that made sound carry differently. Her reflection swayed in the black water, distorted. She studied it until her pulse calmed. Then headlights cut across the rain. A black car slowed beside her, the window lowered. He didn't speak at first, just watched. "Do you always walk alone after creating storms?" he asked. His tone was even, unthreatening, which made it worse. She turned to leave. He said quietly, "Your friend would be dead if you'd hit anyone else." Her step faltered. "What?" He looked forward, not at her. The man you slapped last week insulted her because she testified against one of mine. You intervened before he could make her disappear." Her mouth went dry. The night stilled. "So this was mercy?" she asked. "No," he said. "This was control." He finally met her eyes. "You think I let you walk away because I admired you?" "I didn't. I let you walk because I wanted to see if you'd come back on your own." The honesty landed heavier than threat. Lyra's throat tightened. "Why tell me this?" "Because I'm tired of pretending my choices don't cost me," he said. Then softer. "You remind me of the person I stopped being to survive." The rain paused between them. For the first time she saw it. The fracture inside him wasn't power. It was fatigue, and in that recognition, her anger lost its shape. He opened the car door. "Get in," he said, "or keep walking and let someone else decide your story." She stood in the rain, trembling. Every instinct screamed to run. Every heartbeat whispered, "Listen." Finally, she exhaled, slow, steady, and stepped inside. The car moved without sound. Rain slid down the glass like seconds refusing to pass. She sat beside him, close enough to feel the temperature of his restraint. The city blurred outside, all silver and distance. Neither spoke. Not for minutes. Not until silence began to ache. He broke it first. "I've been watching people obey me for half my life," he said. "It's the loneliest kind of noise." She turned slightly, just enough to see his reflection in the window. It looked younger there, tired, human. "Why tell me that?" "Because you didn't obey," he said. "And the world didn't end." The words disarmed her more than threat ever could. Her breath caught, uneven. "You think defiance is purity?" she asked. "No," he said softly. "I think honesty is violence. You just delivered it with an open hand." The tremor in her chest deepened. Not fear, but recognition. It was the first time someone had seen her anger as truth, not sin. Lyra leaned back, eyes closing. Her voice came smaller. "I wasn't brave. I was tired. I wanted to protect someone so I didn't have to admit I couldn't protect myself." Her throat tightened mid-sentence. She let the break stay audible. He didn't fill it. Didn't rescue her with words. He just listened. That was worse. And better. "I built an empire," he said finally, "so no one could humiliate me again." A breath. Turns out, the price of that is watching people become smaller around you. His confession wasn't loud. It was the kind that leaves space after every word, so truth has room to breathe. "Do you ever wish you could stop?" she asked. "Every day," he said. "But I don't know how." Her voice trembled. "You just did." The car stopped under a bridge, a pocket of quiet carved from the storm. He looked at her hand, still trembling slightly. "Does it still hurt?" he asked. "No," she said. "Then why are you shaking?" Her answer came slow, almost a whisper. "Because when I hit you, I didn't feel hate. I felt seen." He inhaled sharply, not shock, not anger. Just realization. Two people built from control, both suddenly out of breath. Neither moved closer. They didn't need to. The silence did it for them. For one fragile moment, the air forgot who was dangerous. Dawn arrived quiet. No thunder, no echo of the night before. The city breathed again, softly, as if relieved they'd both survived honesty. They sat on a pier overlooking the river, steam rising from paper cups. No guards, no audience, just air and consequence. He had offered the place. She hadn't refused. Maybe that was trust, maybe just exhaustion. Lyra's hair moved in the breeze. For once, she didn't smooth it back. Let imperfection exist. Dominic watched the river. "You ever notice," he said, "how water forgives everything it touches?" She smiled faintly. "It also remembers." He nodded. "Maybe that's what forgiveness really is. Remembering without punishment." She let the thought settle. The silence between them felt clean, not sharp. He reached into his pocket, placed the silver cufflink on the wooden rail between them. "It used to mean control," he said. "Now it means choice. Yours." She stared at it. Metal catching sunrise, cold learning warmth. She didn't pick it up. She just touched it once, light as breath. "You don't owe me," she said. I know. He turned toward her. That's why I finally do. 3-line calm reset. They sat without speaking. Waves tapped against the pier like heartbeats trying to synchronize. Every exhale softened the edges of power. For the first time, she didn't feel smaller beside him. And he didn't feel untouchable beside her. Two people made of defiance, learning peace without surrender. The city woke behind them, but they didn't rush to join it. They had earned the right to be still. It's strange how mercy begins where pride ends. How the same silence that once felt like punishment becomes proof that you're finally safe enough to listen. Lyra thought about that night. The slap, the look, the smile that rewrote danger into recognition. Power had met honesty, and for once, neither broke. The world called her brave, but bravery had nothing to do with it. It was fatigue wearing courage as a disguise. All she'd done was refuse to trade her conscience for comfort. Dominic's name still lived in headlines, but now it carried a different weight, quieter, less certain. As if even the city understood that transformation doesn't always announce itself. They had become proof that violence can be rewritten if someone chooses to hold still long enough to understand it. Forgiveness wasn't surrender. It was the act of not letting old power decide the new tone of your breath. Sometimes she wondered if he changed. Sometimes she wondered if she had. Then she realized, change isn't a confession, it's a rhythm. And they had already started breathing differently. She remembered his line. Finally, someone real. It no longer sounded like victory or fascination. It sounded like relief, and in that realization, she found her own truth. That the strongest form of defiance is gentleness that refuses to vanish. Every silence they shared had become a lesson. That mercy, when chosen freely, is power purified. She looked at the river again, the cufflink gleaming beside her, untouched but understood. It wasn't an offer anymore. It was a memory of balance found, and in that memory, the story exhaled. Rain again. Not the storm kind, the kind that drifts, quiet, forgiving. The same city. The same glass walls, different air. People still whispered the story of the girl who slapped the Mafia boss, but stories shrink when you survive them. Lyra walked past the restaurant where it began. No spotlight, no fear, just footsteps against memory. Inside, a new crowd. Different laughter. The world had moved on, and somehow so had she. She paused at the window, saw her reflection overlap with the glass. This time, she didn't look like someone fighting to exist. She looked present. A black car slowed at the curb. Familiar, unhurried. The window lowered halfway. No words, just a glance. Brief, human, steady. He didn't smile this time. Didn't need to. Some connections don't need names anymore. They exist where silence remembers. Lyra nodded once, a gesture smaller than a breath. Then kept walking. The air felt lighter, like the city had forgiven itself too. She passed the corner where puddles caught light instead of shadows. Her hand brushed her sleeve, no tremor now, only warmth. The sound of rain softened further until it was almost gone. Until it felt less like weather and more like peace. She whispered, almost to herself. Finally. Someone real, not about him, about her. And then, nothing but the quiet hum of the world learning to breathe again. The chapel was empty. Just the smell of dust, rain, and candle smoke. Father Mateo lit one taper, the small flame trembling in the draft. He'd been expecting her. He always knew when storms ended. Lyra stood by the door, hands in her coat pockets. The city's noise stayed outside, respectful, distant, still walking alone? He asked. She smiled faintly. Not anymore. Her eyes lifted toward the stained glass above him. Rain slid down its colors, red, gold, blue, the same rain that once hid her fear. Now it only softened the light. She walked to the altar and set the silver cufflink beside the candle. It glinted once, then stilled. For him? Mateo asked. For what he tried to become, she said, and for what I almost forgot I could be. He nodded, voice low. Mercy's heavier than revenge, you know. I know, she said. But it leaves your hands cleaner. Medium silence, 4S. From the tower above, the bell began to chime. Not mournful, not grand, just one sound carried through the air like a breath released. Outside, the city shimmered under a silver dawn. Every window caught the same reflection, a world that had learned at last how to hold itself gently. Lyra stepped into the street. The rain met her again, no longer cold. She looked back once, saw the chapel door close. The echo lingered, soft and final. Her whisper was almost lost in the wind. Power only matters when it protects. Then she walked on. Each step lighter, each breath steady, every silence now a choice, not a cage. The world breathed with her, slow, calm, whole.